Hi, I'm Heidi Rader with the University of Alaska Cooperative Extension Service. I'm here today with Steve Masterman with the Alaska Fruit Trees. Behind him is his beautiful orchard that he started with his wife Sarah Masterman, and he's going to show us around and tell us a little bit about how he got started growing fruit here in interior Alaska.
Yeah, thanks, Heidi. We got started back in 2007. I have a friend who bought some apple trees from Claire Lammers, and Claire has an orchard off of Chena Hot Springs Road, and I told my friend there's no way you can grow apples here, and he's like, no, you can grow apples here. So I thought, okay, I got to check into this. So I got a hold of Claire and went up to his orchard in late August 2007 and drove around the corner, and there was his orchard in full fruit, just beautiful trees laden with ripe apples, and just blew me away. He had plums up there and pears and a walnut tree and cherries and other things too. And so he agreed to show us how to graft, and so the next spring I went up there and grafted with Claire and spent a bunch of time up there with him, helping him with his orchard and picking his brain and learning as much as I could. And yeah, we started clearing land the next spring and planted a much bigger orchard than Sarah had originally thought we were going to plant. We had 70 trees in that orchard, and now that wasn't quite enough, so we cleared this lot and now have about 500 trees.
Wow, that's impressive. Well, great. Let's go check it out.
Yeah, all right, sounds good. But the other thing about the hardiness is it seems to be really important is the fall.
How gradual it is.
How gradual it is and how long it is. Mm-hmm. And so these plants, they're trying to get ready for winter. They recognize the change in daylight and they start getting ready. But if winter comes really fast and they're not ready, then you'll see dieback the following year. And depending on how they go into winter, you see more and more.
Okay.
And the fall before last, we had a really early end of summer, I guess. And so they went into winter fully leafed out, green leaves, and it was cold. It was 45 below. Mm-hmm. And so we had quite a bit of dieback, particularly on the cherries. But when we go look at them, you'll see that they've totally regrown.
Okay.
So it's not a problem. You can see the buds are starting to come out, and it's really nice because the bud on the very tip is coming out as well, which means it didn't get any dieback in the winter. So it's completely hardy and survived without damage through the winter. It was a mild winter, but still, it's nice to see that they didn't suffer through the winter.
And this is a Juliet cherry?
Yeah, this one is a Juliet cherry. It's one of the Romance series, and it's reportedly the best flavor. But that is very subjective, right? It's like
Yeah.
What's best for somebody who might not be best for you.
Mm-hmm. So this is a Juliet cherry. It's a bush cherry, pie cherry, technically called a sour cherry, but you're saying not super sour.
Yeah.
And can you tell us a little bit about the pollination and if you remove any of the fruit from the cherries?
So the nice thing about cherries is that they're self-fertile. So right now Juliet is the only cherry we have blooming in the orchard, but it will pollinate itself. I mean, bees can carry the pollen from flower to flower and it will produce fruit without having another variety to pollinate it. So that is really nice if you don't have a lot of space. You can just have one cherry tree, and also if you just love the flavor of a particular cherry, you can just have that one. So that's a nice feature of cherries.
And how old is this cherry?
This is 4 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, it was planted in 2021.
And behind it is Carmen Jewel, which must be a few years older than...
Yeah, this is actually quite a bit older. This was planted in 2010.
Okay, so about 15 years old.
Yeah.
But Juliet will eventually be taller than Carmen Jewel potentially?
Yeah, I mean, they say that this is the tallest of the those bush cherries from Saskatchewan. The ones over in the new orchard are already, actually in the new orchard, some of them are taller than this. They are already reaching up. I'm just surprised how tall they are, because those ones, well, they were also planted in 2021, and they were planted, they were like just little tiny, tiny, tiny things. And now they're like this tall. So, I mean, I know it's like predictable, but I'm just still amazed by the miracle of growth, you know?
Yes, it is always amazing.
Yeah.
So these plants are 4 years old. They were planted in 2021 and they were in 2-inch plugs. So they were maybe this tall. And yeah, they've done great, as you can see. They're head high now and fruiting for the first time this year. So that's 4 years from plugs to fruit. So typically we sell cherry bushes that are maybe this tall. And so those things are probably 2 years from fruiting. We planted them in rows to form hedges. And so these things sucker. And if you look, you can see places like there's a sucker that's coming up. And right over there, there's one there, there's some there, there's one there, there's one there. And so when they come up in the aisle, we mow them. And we're going to let them come up between the bushes.
Okay.
And so eventually how we'll prune this is we'll just cut out the old ones and let the young ones keep coming up. And because they all fruit on the younger wood. And so you need to keep pruning them anyway. But
So when would you prune like this bush, for instance? You'd cut the whole thing down?
we pruned this spring.
Uh-huh.
But when they get to full height, then they've got a couple of years of good fruiting, and then the branches start to get older and not as productive.
So about 6 years?
Yeah, maybe 6 or 8 years. Then we cut that out, and these ones that are coming in between, we'll just let them grow up and take over and have, 4 or 5 years of good fruiting, and then we'll cut them out, and the new ones will come back up.
So you're not going to worry too much about like pruning individual branches in there. You're just going to...
Yeah, I mean, we'll take out whole stems. So eventually it'll
So it's
just
a
be
little more efficient.
just be a solid hedge.
Yeah. Wow.
Since we haven't gotten to that point, we haven't quite gotten that figured out yet. But we'll have to do something in the aisles to keep it open, so we'll probably get a hedge trimmer and trim them all with a hedge trimmer just so that it doesn't close it in. And then we pruned these guys this spring for
And
the
you'll
first
just
time.
go along the line and...
Yeah, as part of it, we'll just go along the line. And they fruit on the young growth. So in some ways, that's a totally fine way of pruning them because they'll put out new branches and those will be fruiting.
So I imagine these are your favorites down here in the U-pick.
Yeah, and so it goes Juliet, Carmen Jewel, Valentine, and Evans. And then at the top are Romeo, and we have Cutie Pie. Some of the ones that we don't have very many of are more like test varieties or more recently propagated or developed, so they're not really known.
Right.
So we don't know how they'll do. But yeah, the Evans we really like, and the Juliets we really like.
Well, it's really amazing to see your orchard, and yeah, we'll have fun checking back later in the season and watching it grow.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
So this variety here is Romeo.
Yep.
And is it like 1 year later to ripen and mature?
No, the other ones are about the same. They seem to ripen all about the same time. Evans, like I mentioned, those ones will stay on the tree later. These guys, because they split, you've got to harvest them, otherwise they'll be no good. As you can see, there's quite a lot of split ones on there, and the hornets are getting in them and having a good time.
You said Juliet's the best tasting.
That's what the consensus opinion is.
Okay.
Yeah, obviously everybody has their own preferences.
Is that your preference, or?
I think so. I mean,
Okay.
these are really good. So it's a very marginal difference,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Some people like them more tart, and so maybe they would prefer the Evans.
And which ones were you saying were the hardiest? And you were
Valentine is the hardiest.
Okay.
We had winter before last. Fall came really quickly, and these guys hadn't dropped their leaves, and so they were all fully green, leafed out going into winter, and we had quite a lot of dieback on some of them, but hardly any dieback on the Valentines.
Okay.
And then so the Valentines are the hardiest, and they're considered to be the most productive. They get a little taller. Romeo's the sweetest of the ones that we have, and it's been the first to really fruit substantially. And then Juliet is the best tasting, and Carmen Jewel is the other one that we have, and it's just a really good all-around kind of cherry.
All right.
Yeah.
Any other cherries to talk about, or?
We have a
Show,
couple
or?
of new varieties that we just planted last year called D'Artagnan and Big Red, and then we've got another one called Cutie Pie that we're going to plant this year. And then we have a few rootstock that we're going to try grafting sweet cherries onto. Again, we tried grafting them before, but the winter took them out. We had some take, but they didn't survive the winter, so we're going to try it again
Okay.
in the spring.
Great.
Yeah.
So what kind of competition do you have from birds or any animals for the cherries?
We've not really seen any birds on the cherries at all. I know that in other parts of the country they have to net cherries, and so we've talked about doing that, and we could if we needed to. But we haven't seen the birds on them. We do see hornets get on them when they split, but they don't touch them before they split because they can't get through maybe the skin. Well, with these guys, you can see there's little tree guards on the bottom, those gray things on the bottom. Those are to protect the tree from me, because I weed whack the rows, and I don't want to weed whack the trees, and I've weed whacked too many trees as it is, so we put those on. And then later in the fall, in September, we'll put a spiral tree guard on each one of these trees, and that'll protect them from the voles. We take those off in the spring. And then for the bush cherries, we've been putting down coffee grounds, and that seems to, well, we haven't had vole problems since we started putting coffee grounds
Okay.
down.
Interesting.
Don't know if it's just that the bushes have gotten older and they're not of interest anymore, or we have read online that coffee grounds do help keep voles away, so there may be some truth to that.
Okay. So it looks like we have some cherries here ready to harvest. What time of year are you usually harvesting your cherries?
They're second half of August, generally speaking, maybe mid-August. They're a little bit earlier this year than some years, but they actually ripen over a fairly prolonged period of time. Some of the other ones, the Romance series of cherries, kind of ripen and then they split. So you kind of have to harvest them. But these ones right behind us here are Evans cherries, and they continue to get sweeter the longer they stay on the bush or the tree. So these guys don't seem to split, and they just get sweeter the later into the summer. So we could leave these probably until September. And in fact, we've left some of them on the tree all winter long, and in the springtime they've partially dried out, and they're incredibly good in the spring too. Just, yeah.
That's nice to have a long harvest window.
Yes. Yeah, otherwise it can be kind of crazy to harvest them all. You know, if you've got to pick them all in one day, it gets kind of busy.
Yeah. And so what color are you looking for? Can I pick one of these?
Yeah. So these things, Yeah, this is Evans. This is about as dark as they get. Some of the other ones we'll see over there get a lot darker. And so with cherries, people tend to pick them too early because, well, obviously they start as little green cherries and then they turn red, and then people think they're ripe, but they're not. So first they turn red, and then they fatten up and get juicy, and then you wait and you feel them, and when they get nice and squishy and soft like this, and they pop off the stem pretty readily, they're
In addition to the U-pick, you also sell plants
right.
locally here as well as online.
Yeah, yeah. We sell grafted trees, and we sell these plants too, honeyberries and cherries and saskatoons and currants and gooseberries.
All across Alaska, but you've also had orders in cold areas of the lower 48.
Yeah, we get some people every year, from, Minnesota, Montana. Also people, interestingly, at higher elevations in Colorado. They buy stuff from us, and we send scion wood out as well as grafted trees. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Not a huge amount, but it's kind of fun to think about things growing in other places.
Yeah, meet new people.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. And then across Alaska too. It's kind of fun.
You do a U-pick for your cherries, and how do you organize that and charge for the U-pick?
Well, we're learning as we go, so it's still fairly new to us. And this is really the first year we had a sizable cherry harvest, so I had a fairly good U-pick. So we have a mailing list, and people subscribe to the mailing list, and we email people with the dates that we're going to pick. And then we also put it on Facebook. We have a Facebook page, and we put it on there. And people can get onto our appointments scheduler and schedule a time to come pick. And so we don't just have an open pick where whoever wants to show up can come show up. Mm-hmm. We manage the number of people by having just at most 5 at a time. And that way we can kind of keep it under control. It's a better experience for people. It's not a zoo, and it just seems easier to handle that way.
Nice. And then you charge by the pint for the
Yep.
cherries?
Yep, we started charging by the pint this year for the honeyberries and the cherries, and we'll do the apples by the pound. And the cherries were $6 a pint this year.
Okay, seems pretty reasonable. You probably harvest quite a bit for yourselves as well?
Yeah, Sarah makes sure to get out here and get we only put up about 10 pounds of cherries, is what she pits. That's enough for a batch of cherry pie filling. And so that makes about 5 or 6 quart jars of cherry pie filling. And 1 quart makes a really nice cherry pie or cherry cobbler.
And so that's how you use all of your cherries?
Pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it's hard to beat.
You figured out the best way.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.